Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast from St. Louis. I've got a franchise consultant, Ryan Gasaway, and he's going to talk to us all about some of the most common mistakes that beginners are making, how to get into franchise, how to become, and how to create additional revenue streams through this new model. I'm really happy to talk to him, and we've had a number of franchise consultants on the podcast as well, and I'm really happy to have him on and showcase what he does. Ryan, welcome.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. Appreciate you having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Briefly chronicle your journey and how you got into what you're doing and how you can help clients.
Yeah, sure. Just a quick intro. As you mentioned, I'm a franchise consultant, which means that I generally help people explore business ownership through franchising. So I work with people who are interested in becoming franchise owners, aren't really sure where to start. With the thousands of franchise options that are out there, it can be really overwhelming to figure out what's legitimate, what fits your goals, and what it would really look like to run one of these businesses. My goal is to help simplify that process for people and act like they're their guide or their coach. My business is called the Franchise Blueprint, and the idea behind it is simple. We help people build their future freedom. And for some people, that means perhaps leaving a corporate job that is maybe burning them out. And for others, maybe it's creating time flexibility, building generational wealth, or just having more control over their life. And a little bit about how I got into this space. Close to about 10 years ago, my wife and I started to have that entrepreneurial itch. And we were both pretty established in careers with decent income. And we eventually began asking ourselves, how can we achieve more personal freedom and financial freedom for ourselves and for our family? Like many people, I dabbled in a few different business models, spending some years sifting through what I liked, didn't like, things I thought I would like, but ended up hating, before ultimately navigating a bit of a mindset shift that took me more into investor territory. Through some experimentation and reflection, we found that what we really wanted at the end of the day was a business that we could enjoy running, that we could do it on a semi-passive basis and build long-term wealth and personal freedoms. In other words, we wanted an asset. I was drawn to franchising because I learned that it could offer those things to me. I wanted to be a business owner, but I didn't want to start from scratch. And I didn't want to work 80 hours a week trying to make it successful. I wanted the structure and the support of a proven system, but also with the autonomy of business ownership. I was at a place in my career and personal life where I was craving a lot more of that flexibility and wanted to build something that aligned with my own values and my own desired lifestyle. I left a pretty good corporate job that I had for almost 12 years and ended up investing in an emerging quick service restaurant concept. And that was a move that, of course, didn't come without risk and a little bit of uncertainty, but it completely changed the trajectory of my own life, not just financially, also in terms of the time that I have with my family and the sense of fulfillment that I could get from running a business that helps me achieve my own vision and create my own ladder versus continuing to try to climb that corporate ladder. And really, most importantly, it's given me the confidence to put myself out there as a resource to help other people do the same thing, which is what led me to start my consulting firm. And that's really the most fulfilling thing that I do now. I get the privilege and the honor of helping someone else identify opportunities to achieve their own entrepreneurial dreams. Look, at the end of the day, I have a family, young kids, and there's nothing more important to me than being able to invest as much time and energy into them as I possibly can. That's where I came from and how I got to where I am. And franchising has really been the catalyst to all of that in my life.
Yeah, interesting. Great introduction. And for the audience investors out there listening, what's I'm trying to describe your client avatar, and what is the number one pain point or frustration or aspiration or desire that your client avatar comes to you for?
Yeah, let me start by saying that there really isn't any specific background or industry that people have to come from in order to be successful in franchising. But many corporate leaders or industry professionals find that those types of careers have prepared them well for success in franchising. Those types of people are used to executing on solid plans, following processes, working in teams, that sort of thing. Really good owners tend to be strong leaders, but also very coachable. And in many cases, they're coming in with no prior experience in the industry. They just need to be ready to learn and have that beginner's mindset. And the biggest point that I want to make there is that you really do not need to be an expert in any given industry. In fact, many people come in with no backgrounds in the industry that they invest in, and franchisors tend to see that as a good thing. But you do need to be proactive and committed to growing your business. Now, on the other hand, there are people that want to constantly tweak the system or hoping for overnight success might find that type of thing frustrating. So even though you're given that formula for success, it's still hard work and you have to execute. To answer your question, people that come to me, that maybe they're suffering from corporate burnout, or again, they're looking for more time freedom and financial freedom in their lives. But you really need to come in with that mindset of I'm starting something new. I need to have a beginner's mindset. And that sort of sets the foundation for their success.
Yeah, interesting. And I want to differentiate you from other guests because we talk about all the pros and high margins and high growth. And so I want to talk like more of just the way the audience would respond. So franchisee is not, you have high upfront startup costs and then you have to learn the business. Typically, it's not a passive venture initially. You have to be in the franchise working. So the question is there a better alternative? Because it's all huge upfront costs and you got to spend your time and energy. And if you're looking for a passive or semi-passive asset, is franchising the best thing?
I think it's for people that want to be in business, right? If you want an investment that's completely passive, something you never have to touch, that's what the stock market for is in my mind, or some other type of investment. If you want to get into franchising, you need to be prepared to have some hand on the business, even in semi-passive models, executive models. They're businesses that you can run on a part-time basis once you get them up and running, but you've got to get to that point. Typically, if somebody comes to me and says that, hey, I want to invest in a business, I just want to be an investor, silent in the background, I never want to touch the business, we might have some challenges to overcome before I ever recommend that person getting into a franchise business.
Yeah. It's because, for example, like Subway or any sort of restaurant franchise, you have to make sure that it's operating efficiently and you're making profit. A lot of times there's a couple franchises here, I see the owner there, like watching the employees, like actually working in the business, and then the ones that don't, they usually are closed in a year or two. The other question I have for you is, there's a question for the audience, is with someone that wants to be in retail or brick and mortar or like restaurant or service, how do you deal with the Amazon effect, which you can see like malls and just shopping strips like just demolished, or now people DoorDash and Uber, and now people don't have to eat in restaurants? How do you address that as a friend in your franchise business?
Yeah, it's important to find something that's differentiated, right? But maybe just tell you a little bit about my process and how I guide people through from start to finish. I tend to take a very hands-on and personalized approach. And it's all about helping people find a business that has all the qualities that they are looking for in business ownership, and ideally nothing that they don't want. And I want to get to know the person. It's not just about their budget or what their necessarily personal interests are. We go so much more thorough into that process than what most people expect. And it's not just about asking what they want and then providing them with a catalog of businesses to choose from. So it's taking the time to understand where someone is in their journey and then meeting them where they are. And that's the foundation. And we're going to dig into what's motivating them. Why are they interested in franchising? What does their ideal lifestyle look like? How much time do they want to spend on the business? Or not, are they going to be full-time in the business, or do they want something that they can eventually run on a semi-passive basis? And how much capital are they willing to invest? What is their tolerance for risk? What skills and experience do they bring to the table? Are they interested in something brick and mortar, or do they want something that's more home-based? That's just some of the criteria that we will discuss. And then from there, I present them with some curated opportunities that align with that vision. I educate them about what to look for, guide them through validation, and help them ask the right questions all along the way. And part of that is, hey, make sure that we're doing your market research and you're validating any claims made that the franchisor makes with franchisees. And that's one of the things that a lot of people tend to miss in this process is the importance of independent validation. What does my market look like for this product or service? Is it saturated, or do I have something that can, in a niche, that can be differentiated? My goal is never to push someone into a decision. It's to help them make a very confident and informed one. So, hopefully that helps answer some questions for your audience.
Yeah. And it's important for the audience. You have to make sure that what Ryan's talking about is you want to be in business as a free. It's not something because it has high upfront costs. You're going to have to be spending a lot of time. The risk is very high. So that's the common misconceptions about franchises and what people get wrong. So talk about what are some industries that are good for franchising. Obviously, restaurant and brick and mortar retail, those are established, but we're seeing what are some of the franchises that could survive in today's economy?
Yeah, no, I love this question because so many people, to your point, think franchising is mostly just restaurants and that sort of thing. But honestly, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Some of the most successful franchises today are in industries people might not even think of. In-home senior care, STEM education for kids, mobile fitness, automotive repair, commercial cleaning services. I've worked with people that are interested in youth enrichment programs, think disaster restoration services, think of businesses that are recession resistant, pest control, those kinds of things that just don't go away even in down economies. What's great is that a lot of those types of businesses come with lower overhead and strong recurring revenue models. And some don't require a storefront, which can obviously lower startup costs pretty significantly. I always encourage people to stay very open-minded because the franchise that ends up being the perfect fit for them, in many cases, is something that they never even may have thought of. But that's part of what makes this work so fun and fulfilling for me is helping people discover those unexpected paths to ownership that actually do fit their lifestyle and goals.
Yeah, interesting. Then we talked about industries. And then so when people come to you, they're exploring possibilities or they're ready. What are some of the red flags people should look out for when evaluating a franchise?
Yeah, great question. I think it's important to first recognize that with something like between 3,000 and 4,000 franchise brands in the United States or at any given time, it can be difficult to narrow down that list, not only to brands that are a strong fit for you as an investor, but also brands that are reliable and trustworthy. As with any industry, there's bound to be many that, either don't perform at the levels that we would like to see them at, or operate within the same ethical standards that we would hope businesses would operate by. With that said, there's a few big ones. First, if a franchisor is making unrealistic promises or guaranteeing income, that's definitely a big red flag. No business can promise success, and any good franchisor is going to be transparent about the rewards as well as the risks. Second, you need to look at the franchise disclosure document or the FDD, specifically items 19 and 20 in the FDD. Item 19 is going to cover financial performance representations made by the franchisor. And if a brand does not include this data in their FDD, you're going to want to know why. That is not necessarily a red flag, but it could be an indicator. And then item 20 shows franchisee turnover. All of that is disclosed in the document. So if you see a lot of locations that have closed or have transferred ownership for some reason, that could also indicate underlying issues for the franchisor. And I also just encourage clients to pay close attention to how they're treated during the discovery process. Are your questions being answered openly? Are you encouraged to speak with current franchisees? Any good brand will want to be fully transparent and will support your due diligence. So if things feel rushed or vague, that's a very big red flag for me. And finally, listen to franchisees during validation. If you hear consistent concerns about support or profitability or franchisee-franchisor relationships, take that seriously. Talking to current owners is many times one of the most valuable parts of the process that I guide people through. And one more thing I'll say is just trust your gut. If the communication feels off or rushed with the franchisor, or if promises feel too good to be true, there's a good chance that they are. And again, a reputable franchise will be honest, thorough, and frankly, eager to help you make the right decision, even if that means you don't necessarily end up with them.
Yeah. And yeah, I love that. I always do your due diligence. We have a few minutes remaining. And what advice would you give to someone who's franchise curious, but not ready to commit?
Yeah, franchise curious. I love that term. But if you're curious, that's a great place to start. You don't have to be ready to commit. I always tell people to get educated, ask questions, and explore what's out there. Franchising is a big commitment. A lot of times it's a big investment, and it deserves very thoughtful consideration. But honestly, curiosity is the perfect place to start. Treat it like a research project. Find out what kinds of businesses are franchised, what investment ranges are out there, and what does the day-to-day life look like for different types of owners, and start thinking about what that means for you. The discovery process is designed to help people figure out if this is the right path for them. And if it's not, that's okay. My job is to help people get clear, not push you towards something that doesn't fit. Sometimes just taking that first step is what leads to the clarity that people are searching for. So talk to some business owners, ask them about their industries, some of the challenges that they face, and ask them about their lifestyle. How many hours per week do they put into their business? The best advice that I can give is to talk to actual people. The internet can be overwhelming. Sometimes it could be misinformative. And if you don't look in the right places, you can get yourself into some trouble there. Most websites for franchises, for example, are consumer facing for the most part. And so you're not really going to be able to get a good feel for the business model or extract much information about the brand from a franchisee standpoint, or what it's really going to be like to be an owner of that business by relying on those types of sources. Buddy up with people that have been where you'd like to go, talk to an expert about what you'd like to accomplish. And if you're going to invest a substantial amount of time and money into a business, at the very least, have someone in your corner that's been there and can help guide you down that path.
Final question is, if there's one piece of advice through your successes and your failures, what would you leave your the biggest takeaway for the audience, and how can people find you and reach out to you, connect with you, learn more about franchising?
The biggest piece of advice it's don't let fear control you. It's when you make any kind of big decision like this, fear and anxiety and uncertainty is going to creep in at some point. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is to find ways to work through those challenges and emotions so you can break through and really get to where you want to go. And that takes some inner work. And sometimes it's easier said than done. But at the end of the day, I think that's what many successful people are doing, is they're addressing some of those inner roadblocks that hold them back from where they want to go. And I think that's a very important part of this process as well as many processes.
Yeah.
But if any of this resonates with your listeners, I would encourage them to visit my website, which is franchisebp.com. That's franchisebp as in blueprint. They can find more information there, or even schedule a discovery call with me right there from the site. And also check out my LinkedIn page. I share a lot of authentic and transparent content there related to franchising and transitioning from the corporate world into franchise ownership. Those are the two best ways to find me.
Excellent. I really enjoyed this conversation, and it was really enlightening to hear different questions. And thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, likewise, Chris. I really appreciate you having me on.